Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Daily Transfer Roundup show at Chelsea Perspective. And I'm joined by my good friend and brother Fahim. It's a pleasure for me because we'll be for a series of uh, roundup shows in the near future to discuss all the transfer news of the day. Of course, it hasn't been as eventful as we have expected it in terms of incomings yet, but many things have happened in terms of outgoings for our club. Um, so up to this certain point in the transfer window. So first of all, before moving to the specific news of the day, I wanted to ask for him how is his general impression on the club's policy, the strategy, and what we have been doing in the transfer window so far, and what he expects in the near future, starting from this coming week, to happen in order to create the balance between the outgoings that have already been materialized, outgoings that are still expected to be materialized, and also in terms of incomings to complete the rebuild job that has been promised to us.
Yeah, I mean, big up to everyone, big up to yourself. It's been a long time since since I come to this channel, so yeah, it's
Same.
great to be back. It's great to be back. Big up to the chat as well, and big up to Coach as well for allowing me to speak as well on this channel. So, but yeah, in general, in terms of Chelsea's transfers, very exciting in terms of outgoings. We've got a lot of outgoings from Chelsea, but incomings has been a lot of them have been youngsters um,
Yeah.
just actually first team players. So that's something I'm waiting, to be honest. Like, I'm waiting for some big signings from Chelsea this summer because it's a huge rebuild. Our team is completely different to the 2021 Champions League team. It's like almost every single player from that team has left except from Silva, James, and
And chill.
Chilwell. So it's a big rebuild, and there's areas that we need to strengthen. I think our defense is solid. We've got a lot of midfielders that left Chelsea. We need to sort that midfield and the attackers as well. We linked to some strikers, so yeah, we'll talk about them and see see if they fit Chelsea's transfer plans.
Yeah, I have the same opinion in general. I'm very happy with what has happened in terms of outgoings, and especially considering people's skepticism regarding how smoothly it would be materialized, the difficulty that we have had in the previous windows in terms of getting rid of players who didn't want to be here and didn't deserve to be here, failed signings that have been a common phenomenon in the previous windows. But we have to balance it. So basically, half of the job is nearly done. I'm not saying 100% done because there are still players that ideally should leave the club, but also we have to balance it with the other half. And as you mentioned, the youngsters thing is positive in a certain way, but also, in my opinion, it has to be balanced with experience. And what I have noticed so far by many people is that the failed signings that we have had from previous windows have made people generalize, in my opinion, wrongly, the over 27-year-old signings that we have made. I'm not in favor of this kind of generalizations, despite the age of players you judge specifically. And I think we can add very good players, both in terms of those who are experienced and those who, let's say, we can call as exciting prospects for the near future and for the long future as well. So let's hope that some kind of balance will be put in order to facilitate the rebuild even more. Before moving to the specific news, I wanted to say hello to people in the chat. Thanks a lot for supporting us, and hopefully you'll engage with us during the rest of the stream and the rest of the shows that we'll have in the coming days. Good evening to everyone, to the beautiful game. Big up to you. Dixon Donald says Chelsea will not sign anyone again. I don't think so. We will sign players. The what has to be discussed is about the quality and the age span, which has been a topic of discussion. No more Caicedo. I don't think it's a case of saying no more Caicedo yet. Of course, the negotiation is complicated because it's a multi-million pound deal, and Brighton are notorious for being tough in negotiations. So we have to wait a bit. Now let's move to the first piece of information that we have had today. So it has to do with our striker pursuit, because it's naturally anticipated that we will sign somebody else besides of Nicholas Jackson in attack. And one of the most mentioned names in the media recently has been Dusan Vlahovic, Juventus striker, who has had, let's say, his a lack of consistency there. First and foremost, he has some stats that don't really resemble what he produced for Fiorentina, and that makes me personally a bit reluctant in terms of signing him, not just on the basis of how the recent signings from Serie A have been, but also from the fact that whenever I've watched him, he seems tailor-made for counter-attacking system. So he's speedy, he's a player that can capitalize on transitions. But if when it comes to the Premier League and the system Pochettino plays, etc., you need to be to contextualize. But that said, it's a big handicap in terms of the striker situation as a whole we have. Because on one side, I would never want us to go into the new season with Jackson and Broja as our two number nines, especially considering that the first is making a move from Villarreal to a club that the media pressure would get to him, and it's not healthy in this stage of development. And also Broja is coming back from a delicate injury when he got the knee ligament issue in Abu Dhabi in December. So I think it's compulsory that we should get a striker, but I don't really feel that Vlahovic is the one, especially from the price point of view, which Juventus are expected to ask for more than 70 or 80 million, which isn't something that I would really be okay with in principle. So the news was from Alfredo Pedula. I came across it during the day, and he says that there is some sort of interest, but there may be a kind of meeting between the clubs next week, because just now has been contact through intermediaries and it's still early stages. So what do you think about Vlahovic's potential move here? And do you think he'll be some kind of profile striker that maybe is not the perfect guy to lead our attack, but would you make peace with him considering the lack of other options and how dry the striker market is at the moment in terms of quality?
In terms of Vlahovic, like you mentioned before, he did bits. He did well at Fiorentina. I think he was. Not sure how many goals or what the stats were when he was at Fiorentina, but I know he scored a lot of goals. Obviously, got the move to Juventus, not really reaching expectations. But you also have to consider Juventus have been have been going through a lot of problems back behind the scenes, and their manager Allegri is known to not actually have the best sort of style of football, so that probably doesn't suit him either. So I think it's a possibility that he might work out. That maybe if Pochettino thinks that he can work out in this Chelsea team, then I just have to back the manager. I think Poch has to make this call, considering that it's a big decision, because we don't really have number 9, like you mentioned. We have Jackson, we have Broja, but let's be real, I don't think I don't know, but I don't think they are going to be reaching the levels that we need to be reaching in terms of scoring goals consistently in the Premier League. You need to have someone that can be experienced enough to score goals in this league consistently, and we've been lacking that for many years. The last player I can think of that has been scoring goals consistently for us was Tam Abraham, and that was the season when Lampard's got in, which was 15 Premier League goals. I mean, I think we need someone that can, yeah, yeah. So we need someone that can either match that or do more. And my concern with Vlahovic is that he scored goals for Fiorentina, but it was in the Italian league, and we've seen with Lukaku, we've seen with other strikers in the past coming from the Italian league after doing so well, they don't really live up to expectations in the Premier League, or they don't really score as much goals in other leagues. Um, so I think I think with Vlahovic, it's a risk, but I don't think we should be spending more than I don't know what the rumored fee is, but I don't think we should spend so much on this striker because he's not really had the best season, and I don't think we should let Juventus uh, try and get as much money from us because the Italian clubs always try to do this. They try sell at such a high price, and when they come to signing other players like our players, they always bid at the lowest price. So yeah, I think if we to go for Vlahovic, it has to be Pochettino's call. In my opinion, I don't really like Vlahovic to be in Chelsea from what from what I'm watching right now. I think there are probably, in my opinion, there's another option that I think of could suit Chelsea's team. Um, like for example, Gonzalo Ramos. I think he's a very very good striker, the Benfica striker. I think he would suit the Premier League more because of his physicality. I think with Vlahovic, he's more of a striker that you need to feed him chances, and that's something we've lacked over the past years. Creating, obviously, we've signed a lot of players, a lot of different players, but we need to sort out our chance creation. So I don't know if that can be sorted overnight. That has to be sorted by the training ground and the new players coming in, and the system that we play in as well because I think Vlahovic needs to be fed in service. You can't just rely on him to in build up and this and that because I don't think he's that sort of striker. I don't think he's a striker for the build up. I think he's more of a striker that needs chances. And if you don't feed him chances, he will not do well on the pitch. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Vlahovic.
Yeah, that's exactly the reason why I said that he seems tailor-made for counter-attacking teams, so teams who specifically want to play with somebody who can finish the chances rather than somebody who can represent the complete modern striker than possession-based, we can call it this way, teams have in modern football. But there is a handicap actually, and it's very difficult to position yourself in one side because if you reject all the attacking options that can be realistic, then we are stuck with two players who don't give you the impression that they can lead the line for Chelsea at this particular moment, at least. So I don't know what will happen, but we certainly do need a striker. It's one of those cases when, in theory, you say that it's it's a big test for the sporting directors to scout the right guy who isn't specifically young because we got Jackson in that kind of profile, but to discover also somebody else who can be the right profile also in terms of somebody who can lead the attack. And I think I don't really expect something significant, but I expect us to be to go for a strike. Where will it may be, but hopefully we'll get it right.
I don't think it's such a high priority. In my opinion, I don't think it's such a high priority for. I don't know actually, because I think if we sign Vlahovic, that means one of the strikers like Jackson or Broja has to leave Chelsea. Whether that's on loan or as we're hearing that Broja might be going on loan. But I don't see how we keep three strikers if we sign Vlahovic. To be honest, I think one of them would have to leave for
Yeah,
Chelsea
but
to season.
are those two sufficient to lead the attack
No.
due to
No.
the that's the handicap I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the numbers and their age span. It's also the fact that people have to consider the extra pressure that you put over the shoulders if you make either of them the number 9, the regular number 9, one coming from an entirely different league and the other coming from a very long injury. So I think it's um, a very difficult situation to put yourself in one side or another. I personally think that we should sign another striker, a more experienced guy. No matter what happens with Broya, maybe Broya also may need a loan because he has come from back of a very tough injury, and also Mauricio Pochettino is known that he has a very strong training regime. So of course we have to judge in context. But I totally agree with your doubts about Vlahovic, and in principle I wouldn't risk going for him because there are two sides of the story. So as you mentioned, is this guy somebody who is restricted by Allegri style, Juventus overall problems, as seen with Matthias de Ligt, for example, different position, but he was people had misgivings, including me when he was at Juve, and now at Bayern he's sort of revitalized, and the same could happen with Vlahovic on the basis of what he produced at Fiorentina. But on the other side, it's too much of a risk to take if Juve want more than, let's say, 75 million pounds, so or euros, the same thing. So let's see what will happen. But for me, it's very difficult to give a fixed opinion at the time being. Fabrizio Romano actually reported that PSG and Bayern are also interested, and we haven't opened talks yet, so it may not be one-sided, but it remains to be seen for the coming week. DJ Sal says that I think Vlahovic will be an excellent signing for us. Him and Haaland were the two talked about strikers when he was at Fiorentina. Unfortunately, his move to Juventus has not worked. I think he was wasted. Yeah, this is one side. Let's say one side of the coin. So it may be a case of Juventus and Allegri, let's say, more conservative style, which doesn't allow him to fully thrive. But I think that for the money involved, it's too much of a risk to take from our perspective of things because he will cost a lot. This is a sure thing, and he would sign on a long-term contract. So the possibility of getting rid of him if he doesn't fulfill the expectations can be such a hard thing to do if in the next window. So, but
Quick question.
Yeah.
Would you consider a swap with Lukaku? With Vlahovic and Lukaku?
I would. First of all, I don't think it's realistic at all for three reasons. Because first of all, Lukaku, although it doesn't give you the impression of a loyal footballer to one club, he seems to have a big connection with Inter, and they historically have that kind of rivalry with Juve, which has gone beyond the pitch. Secondly, we seem to be firm on getting money alone for Lukaku on the basis of the negotiations with Inter. And thirdly is I can't see Juve paying for Lukaku the sum we want. So a swap maybe can soften the thing a bit in the sense that we are moving Lukaku away and finding a compromise. It has been a difficult thing. But I don't think it's realistic enough to be taken in consideration. I expect Lukaku to go back to Inter. I think they'll find a way to do it despite Inter's reluctance to spend what we want for him. But it's in my eyes, it's less than 1% of chance that Lukaku ends up at Juve. So can't really give an opinion on the basis that it's unrealistic. Adebayo says that does Vlahovic have a persona that is ruthless and resilient? He appears weak to me.
I think he has a persona of ruthless and resilient. I remember one interview he did. His mentality seems strong. I don't think he appears weak. I think the motivation factor is playing a part in the Juventus team. I think he's just been fed up with the system. He's not getting any support from his teammates. I think I think he is quite ruthless and resilient. It's just Juventus just holding him back, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's more about the footballing side of things rather than the mentality at this point. Um, we need a striker. We're keeping Kepa, so we are going to have to outscore every single game. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what will happen because we may also sign a keeper. It may not be a big money signing, but it's rumored that we are planning to sign a keeper who can provide competition to Kepa. So as long as we don't have anything guaranteed, we can't speak with full certainty. But implicitly I get the worries about Kepa actually, because it's that kind of player for me that um, can prove to be a very fine keeper from some games in a row, and then when it comes to the decisive moment, he can let you down. So DJ says even though he's 33, you think it's a big risk. No, it's not about the age. It's about the quality of the signing. Because although Juve are a team that may restrict players, still you have to take everything in consideration. And as far as I have watched him, he doesn't give you the impression of somebody that can easily adjust in a high pressing environment where there are a lot of overloads to be made. As Fahim said, the number 9 should be more complete. He should drop deep, link with the attack, and he seems too static for my liking. But so it doesn't have to do with the age. I may be wrong, and time will tell. But this is the impression. So I wouldn't be without doubts if we sign him. But at the same time, I would understand it, considering the lack of qualities, the lack of quality striker in the market. Historically, a lot of Serie A players have crossed the divided between the big sides within Serie A. Example, Christian Vieri is twice the player Lukaku is. Yeah, but you have to judge in context, as I said, and I think that Lukaku is really determined to go to Inter. Where's coach? 64 million plus 5 million is going rate for decent striker. Good in both boxes.
You know what? I think if we sort out our midfield, like it needs to be more balanced. I think we need to focus more on our midfield because right now it's just not in a good state for our strikers to score a goal. And if we don't sort that out, then signing Vlahovic and not actually balancing that midfield is pointless. It's pointless signing Vlahovic.
But it's expected. No, we are talking about it because at least we know that the club are determined in their pursuit for Caicedo. So we certainly know that the name of a midfield target that the club really have set their sights on. While in terms of the keeper, the attacker, there are just assumptions at this point because there are no concrete reports. DJ says, I rate Ramos too, but both him and Osimhen, who I want as my first choice, will cost over £100 million. I can't see us spending that kind of money on a striker. Vlahovic price fits the bracket and right for Chelsea. Yeah, he may be cheaper than those two, but he won't be cheap in principle. So I don't know whether they will rate him enough to spend 80 million on him. So that's the question. It's not relative. So whether you compare it with Osimhen or the other profiles, it's about principally, do they rate Vlahovic as in a way that fulfills Juventus demands for him, and that remains to be seen. Okay, so let's move to the next piece of information. I think we have covered the attacking situation, and it's still a crossroads. Hopefully, it becomes clear in the next days. We are still talking about attackers, but it's an outgoing here to talk about. Florian Pettenberg, so Pletigo on Twitter, has said that David Fofana is set to join Union Berlin on loan, and for me, it's a very good loan considering that they play in the Champions League next season. Of course, on the basis of the fact that he will have minutes, because otherwise it would be pointless, despite their successful season last year. But when if he gets his minutes and his chances, then he can develop there. And I won't moan about that. It's a dry loan, and I think the club has taken care about the amount of minutes that you will have. Otherwise, as I said, it would be very pointless. But in principle, it's a very good loan. Maybe some can debate whether Premier League loan would have been better, but the history has shown that it can go both ways. There have been players who have come stronger from the Premier League loans. There have been others who um, haven't made the cut at the club where they have gone, and when they have come back, it hasn't been the same. So hopefully he'll have a successful season there if it materializes, of course. But it seems that it will be. And indirectly, I wanted to ask you and also people in the chat. First of all, so are you happy with this kind of loan that it seems to be planned for Fofana? And secondly, does it indirectly confirm, of course it's not 100%, but 99%, that we'll go for another striker?
Um, yeah, I think it's a good loan for Fana. We just haven't seen enough for him to get minutes at Chelsea. To be honest, if we sign another striker, there's no chance for him to get minutes at Chelsea. We've got too many options already, um, in terms of young strikers. So it's a good loan for him to get experience in Germany. I think, especially in Germany, where the attackers are always gonna play with a high line
Yeah.
against them. So hopefully he does score a lot of goals and impress. I don't know what his future pretty much lies with Chelsea. I'm not sure, to be honest. With if we somehow sign a striker and Jackson does well as well, then I don't know where the pathway is for him in the Chelsea team in the future. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Maybe he will do really really well for Union Berlin. But yeah, I think it's a good loan. But yeah, I don't think it completely confirms us going for a striker because, like I mentioned before, we still got two young strikers to sort out what their future this season. Whether Boya will actually play a part if we sign Vlahovic or another striker, or will he go on loan? So we still have to sort out that situation. I think for Fana, it could be an indication, but I also Fafana leaving could be an indication us signing a striker. But I think we had to loan out one of them. We had to loan out either Boya or Fofana, and yeah, like I said, if we sign a striker, then I think Boya will be the one I'll be going on loan because I don't see him just staying around. Because considering the fact that we are not in the Champions League, we've got less
Yeah,
game.
that's in it.
I don't see him getting minutes, to be honest. And the player that would get minutes would be Jackson in, like, let's say the cup games. In my opinion, it would probably be him, considering he's probably more fit and ready to play right now, and probably more. I would say more experienced, maybe. I'm not sure, but in terms of
Yeah,
Premier League
he
experience,
is.
I think,
He has played in La Liga.
yeah,
Of course, he has more experience.
yeah,
But still, relative experience is one thing and absolute experience is another. So he has relative experience compared to Broya, but of course, it remains to be seen whether he is experienced or comfortable enough to lead the attack. And from my opinion, it would be a bit risky as an approach, considering the media pressure in England and the fact that he is moving abroad for the first time, if I'm not wrong. He has developed Villarreal, had a proposed move to Bournemouth in January, failed his medicals, and then had a kind of a very good run of form in the last couple of months of the season with Villarreal. So it's promising, but I don't think that we should be restricted by that in terms of signing another striker. I think when you have somebody with experience who can lead the line, it also provides healthy competition. So I don't think it should be always seen as a case of players putting stumbling blocks to each other in terms of the competition, etc., etc. So it's about the reality of a big club, and you have to make peace with that and compete in order to find your place. Whether Broya will go on loan, that also remains to be seen. There are some rumors that Pochettino wants to assess him first, and then we'll decide. Let's see what happens. For me, it shows that we will sign another striker because although we play less games, it's very risky, I think, and it would be inappropriate to go with Jackson and Broy alone this 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 season. So let's see what happens. I think three strikers maybe cannot coexist in the context of the season we have, but in principle, it's enough when you have the Champions League, and so we will. I'm very intrigued to see the situation, but I think Fofana's loan gives an indication that that we will go for another striker. Chelsea Blues said no matter any striker Chelsea signed, Jackson must be given a chance. That guy will shock EPL next season. Look deep into that guy's eyes. We'll see a big striker in him. Hopefully, that's what we all want. No one is prejudging young players just because of their age, but in my opinion, it would be even more effective if you sign somebody else who has more experience and you get that signing spot on, because it's not just experience for the sake of it. It's about getting it right, both in terms of young players and experienced players, because it helps the competition inside the group, and it makes you it gives the young players another chance to show themselves, to prove it, to get driven by this kind of healthy competition. So I wouldn't be against another striker, and this doesn't mean that I'm not confident that Jackson can be a big player. We have signed him, and we hope that he will be great. Vlahovic style play will have positive effect on attackers which is needed after the season they have had. Hopefully, I have some reservation about his style of play, as I mentioned, but let's see. Okay, so let's move to the other piece of information we've had for today. And okay, so this is one of those topics where you have to be, I think, very, very up to date, because many kind of news happened. And yesterday we got the news that the club had rejected another sort of approach from Inter, that Al Hilal and Juventus could enter the race. Lukaku would consider Al Hilal. Then Metlo says that he only wants Inter. So it's a very flexible situation, and you have to be particularly in this case. It's not that the others aren't flexible, but this case it's particularly. So Metro has reported that Chelsea striker Romelu Lukaku is willing to give up almost one. I think it was £1 million of his wage, and in order to get back to Inter, and this is something that it's here again to rejoin Inter Milan. We'll make a new bid for him this coming week. He's not interested in supposed interest from Juventus. So that's what I suspected when you asked me about the swap with Vlahovic, because I don't think he will go there. And the only thing I can say here is that I hope it gets resolved. So it's not a case of us trying to overcomplicate the discussion on whether he would be better to go here or there. We hope that it's resolved and he leaves, because it's simply it has been a failure for all sorts, financially, sportingly. The loan situation when he was handled, then he was coming back. So all the noise is in itself too annoying, considering the other priorities we have and the fact that we are coming off the back of a disastrous season to the initial expectations. So that's all I can say here. I hope it gets resolved and as soon as possible, so that the more players that are in Pochettino's plans and really want to be here and are good enough to be here go into the tour in America, the better it is for the preseason preparation, which will so of course will have their effect in on the rest of the season. So that's all I can say in this case. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think if we, as soon as we solve out the Lukaku situation, is best for both of us, best for Lukaku, best for Chelsea.
Yeah.
It's clear this guy has no future right now at Chelsea. There's no point entertaining him being with Poch and this and that. I don't think he's got the. It's not a good environment to be with Lukaku at Chelsea anymore. So I just don't think it's the sooner the better. We solve the situation. If Inter stop being like stingy,
Yeah.
stingy, stingy people, then I think we can move forward quicker. But if they're just moving very slow with their negotiations, trying to lowball us all the time, then it's gonna make it's gonna take even longer trying to sort this out. Because honestly, I think they're getting him. I think around 40 million. I think that's how much we want or something.
Yeah, but
And they're offering 20 or something like that. So
or even loans, which isn't appropriate in itself, because he
yeah,
went on loan once and now you can't keep up to loaning him all the time. I read somewhere that they will try to devise something that is heavily related to bonuses, and I have a hunch we won't be fine with it either. But at the same time, I can't see how we will get the 40 million in a fixed, so as a sort of a fixed fee, because they are really determined to either get him on loan or get him on loan with obligations to buy, with installments, and then there are some other talks of them including the majority of the signing bonuses, which isn't the right thing. But I hope he goes. It has come at a point that have to make sure that he leaves as soon as possible. DJ says it has to be with Levi Colwill. We'll talk about later, but it's in the comments. So on his future, I'll speak to my family, speak to everyone I need to, and make a decision. I've got to play at the end of the day to hopefully get there and go to the next senior camp. Well, it's a tough situation because I don't think that he deserves the hype on one side, and on the other side, I don't think that he isn't left of the talent that people consider him to be. He's a very big talent, but at the same time, he has to understand that you can't take things for granted at the big club. So it's another difficult situation. Let's see how the things will go. Whether you talk to Pochettino and etc. etc. But it's I think more difficult that it may show, because ideally he would be back, prove himself, get his place exactly like Reece did when he came back from Wigan, and that's the only exemplary way I think that a lone player who really loves playing for the club and fully believes in his abilities can find a place at Chelsea, and or that is how it should work for every big club. He is a talent, and nobody is denying that. Showed it at Brighton, showed it for England under 21s, but it's not the right way to let's say to ask for your status at a big club for in my opinion. The next one. Yeah, this is very significant because I was disappointed actually, because it's a player that I would like us to sign for a myriad of reasons. Have been here, so in the channel, I think 1 year ago when he would leave Juventus and then join Roma, and of course there was that kind of talk that he wasn't a free, and at the time I said that he can be a bit fragile for the Premier League environment, considering the intensity of the league, the how dynamic it is, and especially for a player who has many repeated injury concerns like Dybala is. But the problem is that the situation is that at the time it was different scenario. Now we need to balance youth with experience, and I think experience that he would provide would be important to have him as a squad player. First of all, what and in particular what really let's say pushed me to the yes side of the balance in this kind of discussion is, first of all, the clause, which is only 12 million euros, and I think this automatically presents you a very low risk and high reward situation potentially. And secondly, he has revived his career at Roma. Despite the injuries that he has produced a significant number of goal contributions in a largely defensive system. And I think he would have been a player that it would have been worth risking on. It wouldn't have been perfect, and I wouldn't have expected that kind of spectacular player that many may visualize due to his past at Juventus when he was at his peak, helped them reach the Champions League final 2017 and all of that. But he would have been a good system player, I think, very good for rotation, and also somebody who can add that spark of intuition and spontaneity to our attack. But it seems that it won't happen, so I don't think it's worth going through it a lot. What do you think?
I like the signing a lot because of the fact that the quoted price, you said it was around less than 20 million, something like that. Um, I think he brings experience. I think that's something we lack right now. It's experience in all fronts. We've got a very, very talented young group of players, but we're also lacking experience in some fronts as well. I thought this signing, if we were to sign Dybala, I think he would have actually give a great example to the young players in the attack, and also the fact that maybe he also got the quality of his creativity and his shooting range as well. As a very, very good player on his day. My only concern would be his injury record, obviously, and the physicality of the Premier League doesn't do him any favour at all. Because I think he missed a lot of games for Roma. I know I watched the final that Roma played in, and he was quality. He was really, really good. But obviously the injury record and all that, it's a worry considering the fact that he had a bad injury record at Juventus, and that's why they moved him on to Roma. But for 20 million, that's very low risk nowadays. Very, very low risk. And if he was to pick up injuries and just make appearances here and there and show quality, I think that should be good enough for us. Considering we got a lot of young players and they're not going to be consistent, we still need to show some experience in the attack. So I'm a bit disappointed the fact that we're not going for him, but at the same time, we've also got other targets that we can go for, or we rely on Madueke or Mudrik to do the job for us. But yeah, it is what it is.
I think the issue is that, as you mentioned, the lack of experience for me is becoming a big concern. And there are people who can say that it's a rebuild, and Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham have undergone City to an extent after they offloaded many of their players and signed, let's say, talented guys into the summer 2017 in particular. So that undergone a process of being heavily oriented towards young prospects rather than experienced guys who are over 27 years old. But the difference is that they had a balance, right? So you have players that you offload, but also there are some that you keep. You eventually restrict their minutes, so the status quo gets diminished with the passing of the years, and you eventually phase them out so that there have been a greater connection between youth and experience. Now, we didn't have to do that because the quality of the players we offloaded, except Kovacic, in my opinion, I don't think we should have sold him, but this is subjective, doesn't really mirror what, let's say, Man City had in Vincent Kompany, Fernandinho, Aguero, or Liverpool with James Milner, Henderson, etc. So I understand why we have made this kind of a huge process of loading players. But when you are in this situation and you offload many guys who are over 26, or also those who are under have gained experience, then you have to add some from outside, which is quality, maybe not big in numbers, make 3 or 4 of them, but they can help facilitate the process. Because if you see the age difference between Thiago Silva, who is the oldest player in the team at the moment, 39 in September, and Raheem Sterling, who is, if I'm not wrong, the second oldest active player, excluding Bettinelli, who is the third keeper. He's 28. It's
Yeah,
11 years of difference between the first and the second, so it's really considerable. And in my opinion, the addition of a restricted but qualitative number of experienced player won't do any harm. But instead of it, to facilitate the process of rebuild even more and help guide the young players to insert themselves more smoothly and in a faster way, more effective, more efficient way, and at the same time would do a lot of good for the team as a whole. So hopefully, the reason why we aren't targeting Dybala are specific. So injuries, I don't know, something that has to do with the player. Because if it's a general approach, I'd be very, very concerned. They have had debates with people about that, but I still think that whether you have a rebuild, you need experience, because it helps facilitate the process as a whole, brings you to the finish line even earlier and in a more efficient way. It's subjective, but I think it's something that we can agree with. Yeah, right?
yeah, completely. Yeah, and mentioned before, you mentioned that we got rid of a lot of big up Thai. We got rid of a lot of experienced players. I think our transitional phase has been poor over the last years, like since Conte, I would say. We've not been able to transition players smoothly. Look at Man City, how they transitioned from, like you said, Company to now Diaz. You look at Real Madrid, actually, the fact that they've got Chouameni after Casemiro, and then they've also got Bellingham, they've got Valverde lining up after Kroos and Luka Modric. Like, that's sort of transition that you need in football, and I think we we've done a lot different approach. We've not got the players like Kovacic and Jorginho who've been at the club for a few years to help that transition phase for the younger players. We instead offloaded them, and now we're relying on the new signings to fit into the system and fit into Chelsea as soon as possible. And that's what creates pressure, and that's what creates sometimes creates a nervous energy for the new signings and anxiety for the new signings to actually perform at this high level. So yeah, that transitional phase is important. The fact that we are going to miss that out with the new signings is a concern, but I think I this time we've actually got scouts. That's something that I've been begging for ever
Yeah.
since we had
And
rumors
direct.
that yeah, directors, scouts that can actually find profiles that will fit into the system that we have. So before that wasn't the case, and maybe this could help us, can help the new signings to actually fit into the system a lot easier, and not have to rely on that sort of transition and transitional phase as much as before. Let's say.
Totally agree. And hopefully we'll add experience and quality one in the coming weeks, so, before the end of the transfer window. So let's move to the next piece of information. I think we have covered the majority. Is there any one left? Yeah, no. Okay, so Ryan Cherki was to join former teammate Malo Gusto at Chelsea this summer. I I can't speak a lot here, because it's something that I haven't watched much of Cherki. I just have come across the opinions of people. Some say he's very talented, but he lacks defensive discipline. His work rate of the ball is a suspect, and which is one of the key features of Mauricio Pochettino's system. And also he's 19, so it would be another young addition, but I don't know whether we will go for it. Leon may be vulnerable if they want to keep him, because in the I think 4 or 5 days ago, or even earlier, I'm not recalling it in the right way now, but it's a case of they having a transfer ban practically, so they can't sign players, and this may make them a bit vulnerable. If they want to keep them, they may want to offload them soon, etc., etc. So it depends on many things. Um, the Of course, it hasn't been anything significant from the top tier sources, but I don't know. Actually, I think we have other priorities to solve first and foremost. As you mentioned, we need, in my opinion, we desperately need two midfielders, not one, two, Caicedo and somebody else. And to see what will happen with the goalkeeper and striker situation. Cherki, if he's really that talented, and I won't speak on talk on let's say certain basis here because I haven't watched much of him. He was at the under 21 championship, but it's something that I will more focus on Chelsea players, Madueke, Colwill, Mudryk. If he's really that good, then I think we should go for him. But I'm asking you here whether you have watched him or know something more in order to tell us about.
Personally, I've not watched him as much. I know that he was very highly rated in the youth academy. He was like talked about when he was um like the under 18s, all that stuff. Like so yeah, so they speak. A lot of clubs speak highly of him. You mentioned before his defensive. He likes that defensive qualities. I probably agree. I think he realized he's just a player that wants to do more on the attacking side, but won't do much on the defensive side, and that can be a It can be a concern considering that Poch really requires his sort of attackers to obviously do the hard work, and I don't know if Turkey has that sort of that thing in his game. So yeah, I like mentioned before, I think we should be prioritizing other positions like the midfield. We've got Madueke on that position. We've also got Sterling. We've got Mudryk. We've got players that can play on the wing. Before that wasn't the case, where we only had a few, like we only had Pulisic, who was majority of the time was not fully fit, and then also Hudson Odoi, who's now on loan. So, so yeah, I think we've got wingers now. We need to focus on trying to bring in midfielders to help our attack. Once we do that, then there's no point. There's no need to try and look into signing more attackers. We need to try and sort that midfield first and the goalkeeper position. But that goalkeeper position seems to be Kepa, is what it is. My opinions on that,
I
but
won't, I won't, I won't, I won't lose my hope as yet. Actually, I think hopefully we can bring somebody else in.
hopefully
Really
because
do, really do, because he is a good keeper in principle, in my opinion. He isn't that kind of worst keeper in the league that people may say. He has his games and he's really good, but the problem is that he's that kind of guy that may have five excellent games in a row, and in the sixth game he will let you down. He will make a mistake. He will, you know, affect the game in the way that you haven't predicted, so it goes out of plan. So basically, I don't think he's good enough to start for a club like us. It's not about being radically good or radically bad, as some people tend to judge keepers in particular. It's all about he lacks that extra kind of factor that you have at the top keeper. You see Neuer over the years at Bayern. Um, Courtois basically was the man of the match in the in the UEFA Champions League final last year. I know some may say it's one occasion, but he has saved them a lot. So even in the other games, and other key names, we have Alisson is also a good keeper. So I mean, Kepa isn't radically bad, but for me, it's a case of not really trusting him to lead the goal for 38 plus games that we have had. We can have the whole season. So there is a middle ground, and I think it's exactly this. He can be very good as he was during Mendy's, let's say, great period after during the Champions League, after the Champions League, a very reliable backup to have, but not good enough to play as a starter.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? Our back line is solid. Like, imagine we play a back three of Colwell, Badiashile, and Fofana. That's a very, very strong back three. Along, if we try add like a tall, commanding goalkeeper like Mendy was before, yeah, before he had that sort of decline, then I think we would have one of the best defense. But Kepa in goal, I think my only problem is that he just doesn't command his box. When it comes to crosses, it's a worry every single time.
Long
I
shots.
hope, yeah, long shots as well. Like, it's nothing the defense can do much, to be honest, and I think that can really let down the defenders that we have. So I'm a bit disappointed we haven't actually tried to go for like a top keeper. I have no Manchester United going for Andre Onana. I would love him at Chelsea, um, or Mike Mainan from AC Milan.
Yeah,
Like,
he is very good.
yeah,
He's
if
very
we
good.
somehow get him with the situation they're going on through right now, that's amazing. But I'm not going to get my hopes up. I think Poch has made his mind up with Kepa. I think we might sign a young goalkeeper, which is what is. To answer this question, McAllister was a release clause, so that's why he was cheaper than cheaper than than the quoted price because Liverpool
Yeah,
paid the 35 release
they
clause.
signed two decent players only through release clauses.
Yeah,
Probably Slobozai as well. So okay, I think this was the summary that we had prepared. It's not the most eventful of days because, of course, it's also a Sunday, and you usually don't get breaking news on Sundays. There are some other news in terms of the players we actually have, not specifically transfer. This is about Colwill specifically about what he has been doing with the national team. As you can see, so he has worked closely with Ashley Cole at the under 21 Euros to improve his passing technique. Um, I don't think his passing technique has been a problem. Of course, there is always place for improvement, especially for young players. And very good that he has been coached by Ashley, who's a master of defending fullback. So for developing, you know, a defender with a sense of top fullback, he was both attacking wise and defensively wise. Um, but I think it's the least of the problems surrounding him at the moment. The key thing about Levi is the future that we'll have, and it's something to get resolved as well. I don't want it to be an attitude problem, and I expressed my concerns before. No matter the talent, we need players that are really committed and know the demands of the environment very well and endorse them and apply them to earn their place. So this isn't to diminish his quality, but it's also about trying to be down to earth and to make sure that he will really earn his place at the time. Okay, so is it uh, another piece of information? Yeah, it's the last one. Yeah, this is something that Fahim talked about because under Onana week for Manchester United, it's close to getting done. I'm disappointed with something here because it's also that general versus specific kind of discussion. If Onana has not been prioritized due to the fact that the scouts have studied his profile and have doubts, I don't think you can have many doubts regarding him in terms of ball playing abilities, because he showcased them in the Champions League final and before, and he's a very good. The Ajax school generally produces great ball playing goalkeepers and defenders, and he is one of them. They may have had doubts about shot stopping, I don't know, but this would be more absorbable. What I don't really want to have happened is us considering expensive, because if you consider him expensive with 50 million euros in modern market, when you really are in a state that you need a keeper, we sold one. Mendy, of course, has been in decline, as you said, and we need one to come in ideally. I think he would have been a good signing. So maybe he wouldn't have been that Mike Magnon kind of quality who seems a full package, who can make extraordinary saves and also be very well in terms of ball playing abilities. But he would have been a very good compromise considering that we don't play in the Champions League and stuff like that. So I'm disappointed that we didn't go for him, but I would have been even more disappointed if we didn't go for him specifically due to the price. That's
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like when it comes to goalkeepers, they just need to do the basics well, and that's what I don't think Kepa does well. He has probably good distribution, but commanding the box, that's what a goalkeeper should be good at. Saving long shots, like every long shot he gets, it's almost like goal. Corners as well. But yeah, like Mendy, for example, no one knew who Mendy was, and he came in and did the basics really, really well. Did the basics really, really well, and that's what you need a goalkeeper. You don't even need to spend that much on a goalkeeper. You just need to find a goalkeeper that can actually do the job well. Um, Distribution, yes, that's a added bonus. To be honest, that's an added bonus because I wasn't. You don't really need that for a goalkeeper, but obviously in modern day football, it's best to have it. But we shouldn't truly focus on ball playing ability because the goalkeeper still needs to do the job. I don't think Kepa does that at all. Um, so us actually missing out on Anna based on price, it's very disappointing, considering the fact that Manchester United had David De Gea, and they moved on from David De Gea and got Andre Onana like that, and we still haven't moved on from Kepa. It's really it's just frustrating to be honest. Even though David De Gea has shown a big decline, he's not that bad of a keeper. He's still not that bad of a keeper. I wouldn't take him, but I'm saying that the fact that they've let him go and they've brought in a keeper that's an upgrade, that just shows that United are trying to move on from their problems with goalkeepers, whereas we are stuck with Kepa and trying to look for a
yeah,
second choice and competing for that first choice. Like we don't want that again. We need someone that's clear in the goalkeeping position, like
yeah.
someone that's
That's it.
clear.
Yeah, yeah. That's a kind of debate that people may have due to their mindset. Some say that it's good to have keepers who can rotate with each other, but I am I am like you in this regard. So I want a
Mm.
stable number one. The goalkeeper shouldn't be rotated unless it's caps or the kind of compulsory forced, uh, let's say changes when the second keeper has to play because the first keeper is suspended or injured. And Kepa doesn't give you that impression that he's that kind of guy that can and be reliable enough on the over the span of a marathon. So from August to May, basically. Okay, so
Mhm.
that's all we have to talk about for today. It was, as I said, it wasn't the most eventful of days in terms of news. There were a number of them, but also um, we aren't in the hectic phase yet in terms of the stage of negotiation that we should have with the targets, and we expect things to accelerate as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would be a concern, considering that the team goes in basically in 8 days in the in the tour in America. So before rounding it off, I wanted to ask you, Fahim. So do you have any specific thing to say, any specific topic to cover that we haven't talked, or any general thing to say before thanking the people in the chat and rounding up?
Yeah, I mean, we covered a lot of stuff. Maybe I think with the Colwell situation, I'll briefly talk about it. Colwell just needs to talk with Pochettino, and Pochettino will have to be honest with Colwell because, like you mentioned, it's clear that if a player does not want to be at Chelsea, move them on. There's no point having a player that's on the fence. They're not sure if they want to commit to the club or not to
Totally
commit to the
agree.
club. Yeah, we want players that are committed to the project, committed to the success of Chelsea. And to be honest, like if he's unsure whether he wants to be committed, then we should move him on. Like he's a very good player, but very very talented. But it's not like we're short of centre backs. We've got Badiashile, we've got uh, quality centre backs already. And if he doesn't want to fight for his place, if he doesn't want to compete in this Chelsea squad, he can go. He can go because there's a lot of sort of talk around Colwell. It's a bit of annoying to be honest because he's not the finished product here. He's still developing. He's not an experienced player. He still needs to learn. Still needs to develop. Still needs to be coached. So
Basically, he hasn't played the game
yeah,
plus. So how can you
exactly,
ask for assurances when you haven't played?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's still very young. Like you've got many many years ahead of you. So yeah, I'd say whatever happens, happens. I'm not going to be too fussed if Colwell leaves, to be honest, because I still rate
Yes.
Badiashile will be better in my opinion. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Colwell situation.
Okay. So we have to thank everybody in the chat. I know it's not the most appropriate of timings in terms of having a show and people following it us, but the nature of the show is this way. It's a roundup, so we have to gather and analyze all the key news of the day in the most concise and summarized way possible, to analyze them, to give our subjective views on them. So of course it has to be a late night show and we can accumulate everything that has happened during the day. I have to specifically thank Fahim once again because I know it's late. Here at me, it's 1 year later actually, so it's not simpler. But of course, it's a passion for the club that connects us, and it's also for Fahim. It's for me great to be back to the channel. For those interested, the Twitter handles of both of us are here. So Helgi, this is mine, and also Fahim. We talk about the club, and hopefully we'll have a successful and enjoyable summer and season ahead. Particularly considering the catastrophe of the season, we can clearly call it this way, that we left behind us, and hopefully things will be as bright as possible, not just in the long-term future, but also in the near-term future, considering the assertiveness Pochettino has come in with, the kind of decisiveness he has shown in the first interview and press conference. So we'll be back the same time tomorrow and talk about the news. I don't know whether it will be an eventful day or not. It's Monday, so we expect news during the week, and hopefully we'll get positive news about Caicedo first and foremost, the most intriguing topic of recent, but also for other positions, because we really need to sign now, as we talked about during the show, and hopefully materialize it as soon as possible. Thanks again to everyone. Good night, take care, and cheers, and we'll meet tomorrow. Bye.